In this module, I'll be demonstrating a digital graphic recording. This form of visual note-taking is very helpful for conferences and places that you're going that you might typically take notes while you're listening to a presentation or speech. By capturing notes in this way, it makes it very easy for you to share and tweet and post on social media, bringing potential for the visuals that you capture to go viral. What you're about to see is a live capture from a podcast from Vicki Davis, the CoolCat Teacher. Special thanks goes out to her. As you watch this digital capture, I hope you're inspired to start taking notes in a similar way.
October is a month where we focus on ending bullying and cyberbullying. So today's episode, number 169, is talking about bullying and cyberbullying and the things that every educator needs to know.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Today we're talking with my friend Ann Collier about how we can reduce cyberbullying. So, Ann, how bad is cyberbullying now?
Well, I think it's really important to be clear that it's far from the epidemic that we sometimes hear about in the news media. There was a major update from the National Academies last year that looked at what's really going on here, and we do know that it's still less of a problem than in-person bullying. The range that the National Academies found for in-person school-based bullying is 18 to 31% of U.S. young people have experienced it or affected by it. And for cyberbullying, it's 7 to 15%. So they looked at a whole range of research, right? Lots of different studies. And that was the range of kids who were affected by it in both cases, right? Cyberbullying and bullying.
That's still too many. Roughly 3 in 10 in face-to-face and almost 2 in 10. How do we help kids who are targets? Because, some educators tend to just flip out and say, take away the phone, turn it all off. What do we do that's rational, that works?
Yeah, well, that's such an important question. And it really isn't as much about technology as it is about humanity, right? It's a behavioral thing. And what we see on devices and on screens is kind of just sort of the tip of the iceberg. It's just a freeze frame of what's going on in a peer relationship, right? Or a peer group. And usually it involves school, right? Because most of kids' waking hours and most of their social lives revolve around school. So it's really important for us to think about what's going on with the kids. And taking away devices is, not even a Band-Aid, really. It doesn't even affect or change the symptom. So we've got to work on the relationships instead.
You've worked with all kinds of organizations to combat this problem of bullying and cyberbullying. When an educator is trusted enough by a kid or a parent to find out what's happening, what is the worst thing they can do?
Overreact or try to take matters entirely into their own hands, because bullying and cyberbullying are about a loss of dignity and a loss of control for the child, right? Mm-hmm. And so adults can really aggravate the problem by just trying to fix things themselves.
Yeah.
So the most important thing we can do is know that every situation or case is as unique as the people involved, right? And you kind of got to get to the bottom of what's going on among those people. It's not there isn't like a one-size-fits-all solution.
One of the things, I know you and I've talked about this before, is they used to say stop, block, and tell. But I always say stop, screenshot, block, and tell, because getting those screenshots is so important. And once you block, sometimes you lose all that data so you can say and show what's happening.
Yeah, it's really important to have some evidence if a child needs a screenshot or needs to take a picture of a screen with another device or whatever, it's good to have evidence, and it is good to tell and help kids understand that that's not tattling, that it's about seeking help, and that's really important. They also tell us in research done actually with victims of bullying that what helps them the most is to be really heard, to be really listened to. And whether that's a peer, like a bystander being an upstander, or just a friend being a friend, or it's an adult that they turn to, that we really listen and kind of understand that it's a process. There isn't, as I said before, a quick fix.
I lived it for 5 years, and I know this. Like, I know it. I don't know what I would have done if my parents hadn't listened, because sometimes you have to go through it to get to it. You have to go through it to get to the solution. It's not something you can wave a magic wand and fix,
Yeah, and really listening to them and going through the process with them rather than taking matters into our own hands helps them see that they matter. It helps them get to hope. And that they see that they're not alone and that this will pass. If we can help them with that, that is really going far toward really resolving the situation.
So you've talked about let's don't overreact. Let's don't think we can have a cookie cutter approach and that everything is the same, and to really listen. Do you think there's some challenges that educators have as we deal with cyberbullying and even bullying?
I do. I think that very often those of us who didn't grow up with these technologies and media think that this is a technology issue. So we think that we're unfamiliar with what's involved. We're not trained for this. And that's simply not true, because it's a human thing more than a technological thing. We are trained. We do know how to work with kids. We do understand child development. And so we can use those tools and skills and that knowledge we have to help our children.
How can you help it when the child is in the middle of the situation and there really is kind of a mass bullying type attack going on, and it feels like it's everywhere? Like, it feels like it's on every social media platform, everywhere they go at school, and they don't feel like there is an escape. What can we do to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off in that circumstance so that we can get through it? Because I've been there and I know how hard it is. And you know what? If I couldn't have gone home and petted my dog and been away from it, I don't know how I would have made it with social media not being able to get away from it.
Well, I think we do need to shut down the devices sometimes. I think we need to help children kind of cut through that FOMO, right? That fear of missing out. They don't like the drama any more than we do. I run a social media helpline for schools now, and what we've found is that in most of the cases that come to us through school administrators, come to the school administrators from the students themselves. And so there are always students who get sick of this crap and want to fix it, want it to go away. And we need to work with our students to make that happen. And we can do that by reporting abuse in apps and services. And we can use them as our allies, especially student leaders, right? I think we need to remember that there's a digital component now to leadership and citizenship. And those students want to help. And so we need to look at those resources that we have and work with them.
Okay, so Anne, let's take a different approach for just a moment. We've talked about the person who's the target. Let's talk about the kids who are doing it and helping the parents of the children who are participating in this behavior understand and handle it. Because, a lot of times parents will make excuses and say, oh, kids are kids. Bullying's been around forever, but they're not really bullying. This is just what kids do. How do we help the children? Because, the statistics of those who bully are actually scarier than being a target. If I had to pick, I would pick to be the target, because those who bully tend to really have some bad things happen in their lives. But how do we help the parents of those who are participating in this behavior understand how to help their children not to do this?
Well, I don't know if there's a clear answer to that when the parents involved are determined, that to believe that their children are great, that their children don't have a problem. And I think we see examples sometimes of parents who are bullying themselves, right? They're modeling that behavior for their kids, and so they're in denial about anybody victimizing anybody. I don't think there's a clear answer that or a blanket answer to that question. We've got to try to work with those parents as best we can to the extent that they're open to understanding what's going on and the impacts on some of the kids, generalizing the situation a little bit rather than blaming. If we stay away from targeted blaming ourselves, then generally conversation can open up a little bit. But we've got to test the waters, right? We have to understand where the parents are coming from first before we can have kind of a calm, rational conversation.
Could you give us sort of a 30-second platform speech about the importance of actively working with us all year long? I mean, October is anti-bullying month, but we can't pick up the mantle once a month for the year. This is something we have to live. So could you kind of inspire us and help lead the charge with helping us focus on this topic all year long?
This really is something that we have to live. This is about human relations, right? And it is all year long and all lifelong, I think. The research shows that the real solution, especially at the high school level when we really don't know how to make bullying prevention work in grades 9 through 12, that what the real solution really is positive school climates, right? And that's a community-wide thing. That starts with helping teachers feel safe to keep classrooms safe places for students to learn and collaborate. So the whole school community has to be involved in not really in just bullying prevention, but in creating a school culture where everybody can thrive.
I do think it's good for us to, research this topic deeply, bring it back to the forefront of our mind, at least once a year so that we can read the latest research, read the latest information. But we do also have to know that 3 in 10 kids, that's unacceptable. Almost 2 in 10, that's unacceptable. It is so many children in our schools, and it is difficult. And I just ask for you to look around and let's be part of the solution.
Absolutely. We've got to all work together and know that, I don't know how to say this, we're human beings here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to care about kids who are being affected in this way. We need to support them, and we need to, not just sort of tick the box and do the one-off assemblies, but keep working on this together.
I agree. And I tear up as I think about 5 years of crying every day after school for me. And it's just something we have to work on and do better.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at CoolCatTeacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.
In Module 5, Part 4, we'll conclude with just a few reminders of what it means to capture the heart of communication.